Hello viewers, is your car running rough, struggles while accelerating and has poor fuel economy? Well, one of the things that could cause all this, especially if you have a turbocharged engine, is a faulty MAP sensor. The MAP here is short for manifold absolute pressure, which gives away what this sensor does. But how to tell if you have a bad one, and moreover, what to do if that's the case? Well, that's exactly what we're going to find out in this video, so keep on watching. Before going through the symptoms, let's quickly explain what the MAP sensor is and why do cars have it. As the name suggests, the MAP sensor measures the pressure within the engine's intake manifold. In conventional engines without turbochargers, the MAP sensor measures the vacuum inside the manifold, which is higher when the throttle is closed and gradually drops as the throttle opens up. In most cars, it works together with the MAF sensor to give the ECM a more precise picture of how much air is going into the engine. This allows the air-fuel mixture to be adjusted more accurately for optimum efficiency. In turbocharged cars, the MAP sensor's role is far more vital. Here, the amount of air going into the intake is first measured by the MAF sensor. Then, this air goes through the turbocharger, where it gets compressed before being sent toward the engine. And the ECM needs to know how much of this boost is generated at any given moment. First, this value determines how much fuel needs to be injected, among other things. Additionally, the ECM continuously monitors and adjusts the boost so it doesn't become too high, as this might damage the engine. With the theory solved, we can now see what might happen if the MAP sensor isn't working correctly. The data provided by the MAP sensor is used to adjust and fine-tune the air-fuel mixture, so any issues with it will offset this process. And here are some of the most common symptoms you might expect if this happens. The ECM will likely detect an issue with MAP sensor, primarily if caused by its electrical circuit, and trigger a check engine light. So if having this on the dashboard, it's time to break out your OBD2 scanner and see what's stored in the vehicle's diagnostic memory. The codes you're likely to have are the following. With the MAP sensor having a vital role in setting the correct air-fuel mixture, issues with it could offset this balance. If this happens, your engine will run either rich or lean, depending on the sensor's signal. Again, you can check this with an OBD2 scan tool by monitoring fuel trims in the live data section. An incorrectly adjusted air-fuel mixture will cause running issues, which are usually most noticeable at idle. You may notice that your engine runs rough while idling, or it may stall when coming to a stop. If the air-fuel mixture is severely out of balance, either extremely rich or lean, it could cause a misfire. This means the combustion in one or more cylinders is not happening. From the driver's perspective, you might notice the engine is down on power, judders when you press the throttle, and sounds as if it's out of tune. And in most cars, the check engine light will be flashing when the misfire is detected. If your car is misfiring or running very rich, its exhaust will be flooded with unburned fuel. And if the exhaust is hot enough, this may cause a backfire as the fuel fumes ignite. This could damage exhaust system components, with the catalytic converter being the most vulnerable. Without correct and precise information about pressures inside the intake manifold, the ECM will have difficulties setting the fuel and ignition timing. This might, and many times will, affect the overall engine's performance. A bad MAP sensor may cause sluggish acceleration, hesitation, and loss of power in general. In some cases, you might even have problems starting the car if the MAP sensor is faulty. This usually happens if too much fuel is added when you crank the engine, which floods it and fouls the spark plugs. As you may imagine, if the engine runs rich, it will use more fuel, which causes increased consumption and reduced gas mileage. On the other hand, the engine that runs lean will use less fuel than usual, which consequently reduces consumption. While you may think this is a good thing, it actually isn't, as running lean can damage the engine in the long run. Another consequence of an incorrect mixture is increased emissions, especially when the engine runs rich. This, however, can only be accurately determined with a gas analyzer machine, which you probably don't have. Still, you may notice black smoke when accelerating or a strong smell of unburned gas when parked. Lastly, if you have a car with a turbocharged engine, a faulty MAP sensor could send it into limp mode. The ECM will do this to protect the engine from potential damage, as it doesn't know what kind of boost it's dealing with. You can learn more about limp mode in a separate video on our channel. The MAP sensor is always somewhere inside the engine bay, so it's time to pop the hood. In most cars, it's fitted on the engine's intake manifold, and by that I mean this thick section called a plenum. Just look for a small plastic box-shaped sensor held in place with 1 or 2 bolts. Some cars have a map sensor fitted somewhere on their body, such as for example the firewall. In that case, it will be connected to the intake manifold with a rubber hose. In many cases, soot and carbon buildups will form layers on sensor's tip, preventing it from taking correct readings. Luckily, this can be easily solved with cleaning, which we'll cover a bit later. In addition, the electrics inside the sensor's housing could fail for a number of reasons, making it inoperable. If that's the case, you'll have to replace it, as this is not something that can be fixed. Apart from the sensor, you may have a damaged or loose connector, allowing moisture and dirt inside. This could cause corrosion, which then obstructs the sensor's signal. And as with any other electronic component, the wiring may be broken or damaged. You can check this with a multimeter, which you'll use to measure voltages and resistance on corresponding pins. But to know what to look for, you'll need a wiring diagram for your car. Before replacing the sensor, there are several things you should do to check if it's really causing the issue. First, hook up the OBD2 scanner, access live data and find the map sensor readings. When the engine is off, this should read 1 bar or 14.5 psi. The reason why you're not seeing 0 here is because the sensor is reading the atmospheric or absolute pressure at this point. And with the engine running, these values should go up and down as you press and release the throttle. If that's not happening, pop up the hood and check the sensor, connector and corresponding wiring for any visual damage or cracks. Also, if there is a hose that connects the sensor to the intake manifold, it should be in perfect condition. Assuming everything looks okay, move to the next step, removing the sensor from the intake. Once out, check if it's all covered with soot and carbon. And if it is, you could try cleaning it, as this might do the trick. If none of this hasn't helped, you'll have to replace the sensor. But to be 100% sure, you can test it using a vacuum pump. To do so, you need to remove the sensor from the intake but leave the wiring connected. Next, attach the pump like so and pump up the vacuum to a certain level. Then, check the readings from the sensor using your OBD2 scanner. If these don't match, the map sensor is faulty. As said, many map sensor related issues are caused by carbon buildups that prevent it from taking accurate readings, and when these are removed, the sensor could work impeccably once again. To clean the map sensor, you'll first have to find it and remove it from the engine. Start by unclipping the wiring connector and undo the bolts that hold the sensor in place with a suitable socket. Next, carefully pull the sensor from its seating and place it on a work table. Now, take a can of MAF cleaner and spray it all over the buildups. You may have to repeat this several times until all gunk is dissolved. Leave the sensor to dry for 10 to 15 minutes before refitting it. Lastly, hook up the scan tool, delete all trouble codes and take the car for a test drive. If all works fine, give yourself a big pat on the back as you've just saved some money. If the map sensor is still not working correctly after cleaning it, you'll probably have to replace it. And with prices ranging from $50 to $100, this part is not that expensive. But like with most other engine sensors, I'd recommend buying an OEM part from an authorized dealer. Aftermarket replacements, especially cheap copies, sometimes don't work correctly, so it's just not worth the risk. And as you could have seen when we explained how to clean it, replacing the sensor is an easy job you can do on your own. It's just a matter of unplugging the connector and undoing 1 or 2 bolts, and that's it. So that would be all about the map sensor. I'm sure that after watching this video you can now figure out if this is causing your car troubles and that you've managed to fix them. If so, give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. But if not, a whole lot of other things could be causing the issue. So, to continue troubleshooting, check out other videos here or visit our site mechanicbase.com for more detailed automotive repair guides. Bye!